Hello, everybody, and welcome to Draft Questions Answered, the video series where I answer questions submitted by you, the viewer, so that you can get targeted help on the questions that you need answered. If you want to ask questions, you can support me on Patreon and gain access to the question feed there. And you can also remember to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoy this series and want to see more of them. Comment below with your questions and feedback, and subscribe for more content. But without further ado, let's get to today's question. I've decided to shift from a format of a bunch of small questions to going really in-depth on one big question. So today's question comes from Chris, and it says, in my opinion, having a good draft where you make back your gems requires you to be skilled in the three phases: drafting, building, and playing. That being said, I think luck also plays a part, especially in best of one. What percentage of importance would you ascribe to each item? Draft, build, play, and luck. Surely not 25% each, right? Well, Chris, I've actually put some thought into this, and I actually kind of weighted the categories a little bit differently. I consider drafting and building to be kind of the same category, so I really consider it as three categories. There's drafting / building, there's playing, and then there is luck. And I actually have factored that into my analysis for a while, because when you realize that some of the game is outside of your control, it gives you a lot of freedom to focus on the stuff that you can control, where you're like, well, I lost this game, what could I have done differently? Some games you just get unlucky. Some games your opponent just has cards you don't interact with well, and the cards just line up in such a way that you can't possibly win. So accepting that allows you to move towards a better understanding and helps you focus on the things you can change, which is building yourself the best deck via the draft portion, and then playing your best during the games. And I actually think that's one of the things that is best about draft, is that you have this deck building aspect, where in Constructed, a lot of the time, everyone's deck is relatively flat power, because you can kind of just find a deck online, practice it, tune it a little bit, and your deck is going to be relatively similar power level, because you can just build the deck with the cards that you want to see. Whereas in draft, you have to build your own deck, so that's an extra area for skill expression, which I really enjoy about Limited, and it's one of the things that draws me to it, is that luck does play a bit of a lower role in Limited than in some other formats, where maybe you can have some special sideboard tech, but you're not always going to be able to break the format. Now, sometimes that does happen in Constructed. That's one of the cool things about the format, is that a team can come up with a secret brew that really blows things up. But generally, it comes down a lot to play skill in Constructed, which you can get a lot of edges in. But in draft, you have this extra aspect which can really skill test, which is really, really fun. Now, I would say that luck is a factor in about maybe 20% of games. Where games you just can't win no matter what you do. Maybe 25% of games. I have some extra slides here that I was pretty excited to show you folks here. But I think my baseline is that luck is about 25%. I think that you can get a significant edge by just building a better deck than your opponent. Like, if you handed a significantly better deck, like a 10 out of 10 deck to like, that wasn't like too complicated to play, obviously. But if you handed like a 10 out of deck to a new player, and you had them play it against a player using like a 1 out of 10 deck, even if that player was way more experienced, the 10 out of 10 deck is probably going to win. Now, usually decks are like, oh, a 7 out of 10 versus a 4 out of 10, but it can still make a significant edge. So I would say the deck build is probably like 30%, and then the remaining 45% is probably gameplay. But those are just like numbers that I kind of made up semi. Like, it's all so intertwined. But I will say that I think those are the three main areas to focus on. And that's why it's very interesting that a lot of Limited content focuses on the draft portion, when the gameplay is so important. Coming up with a plan, figuring out who's ahead, who's the beatdown. It's a classic question you hear from like a famous article about that topic. Or like assessing your role, making sure that your deck is cohesive, and that you're during the game, you're enacting that game plan, and like not like a chipping in for 1 damage, trading 2 points of damage for 1 point of damage when your win condition is mill, things like that. So the gameplay is actually incredibly important, and making sure your cards line up, that you sideboard correctly. All those things are very, very important, and they do play a role in your overall outcome. So I would say that gameplay is often an underlooked aspect of the game, even though obviously the draft is important as well. But I do have some cool numbers that I wanted to show you. So if you're worried that luck is having an adverse effect on your games, this is the MTG ELO project numbers from drafts at the Pro Tour. So those are the highest stakes drafts, the best players playing against the best of the best. And this is some of the numbers. I clipped the top 20 players' stats here, and you can see that they're all above 60%, but nobody is able to beat 70%. And I highlighted some names here that you may know. John Finkel, often regarded as the best Magic player ever. He's played in 49 Pro Tour events, and his record is 67.9, which is actually absurd. Like, because if you look at the sample size, that's like one of the larger ones, 49 events. And to have such a high win rate over such a sustained period of time is just an evidence of true mastery. And he really is quite skilled. And if the best player in the game can't get over a over a 70% win rate or something, it's very doubtful that a lot of us could. And this is him playing against the best of the best. So if he's playing against maybe weaker players, his win rate probably goes up like 10 percentage points at least. So maybe 80%. That's kind of where I got the 20% from, was because I added like 15% to this number if he's playing against just randos. But I figured there's some percentage of games that even John Finkel wouldn't be able to win. And keep in mind, this is best of 3 win rates. So in best of 1, this is lower, but the aggregate of best of 3 games is like, if you have a 60% chance to win each game, then you're more likely to win a match that's best of 3 than just individual games, because you get multiple bites of the apple in that case. Seth Manfield, another well-known pro. He's quite skilled, very, very good player, and just excellent skill, 66.5 for some reason. Like, and then Raphael Levy, who had the most events played on this list. He has some of, I think he might have the highest pro points total of all pros ever. I also had him as a guest on the channel at one point, so that was a lot of fun. So I wanted to highlight him. He's above 60% with such a massive sample size as well. But like, even all these great players have like a very they have a high win rate, but nowhere like near the 70s or 80s. And then I had another sample size, which is best of 1 data from 17 lands. And this is just data from the current set Midnight Hunt draft. You can see some well-known names. Quarter Calls has been a frequent guest on the channel, things like that. There's just, and their win rate's like 70%. It seems to be like a breaking point, 73% some people get to, but this is in the best of 1, and these are mythic players playing against other mythic players in best of 1. So if the best of the best mythic players aren't able to crest above like 73% over a sustained period of time, it probably indicates that there's some percentage of games that they can't win. And I'm not going to say that any player is infallible here, so there's definitely going to be a percentage of games that they could have won with exact, like, precise, perfect play that they then lose. So let's just say that they play 70, that they win, of the games that they can win, they win like 80% of them or something like that. That's going to lead you to something like this, where it's like you lose 20% automatically, and then out of the remaining 80%, you win like 70% of those, so like 7/8 or something like that. So something like that. So I do think luck does play a role. I just kind of, when I saw that question, I immediately thought, well, I know that there's ways to check the win rates of pros and ways to check the win rates of the highest mythic players. So let's just throw those in there, because they could be really fun to see and help people put it in perspective. Like one of the best ways when you are feeling like you're getting unlucky is to remember all the times that a lot of pros got very unlucky in very much higher stake situations than your MTG Arena draft, which is important to you, and that makes sense because stuff in our own lives is generally very important to us. But there are players who've got like mulliganed into oblivion in like the Pro Tour finals, like LSV in the finals of the Pro Tour, Game 5, everything's on the line. I think he mulliganed to 4 or something like that, which is just like soul crushing. I should know that exact number he mulliganed to, by the way. I think it was 4, but because I remember it was like not like a winnable number of cards. And yeah, those are just soul crushing. It's like a historical moment, so I should totally know the exact number. But yeah, he didn't go to 3s, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't 5. But yeah, it's just, those are the sorts of things that happen sometimes. Your win rate can't be 100%, or the game wouldn't be fun. That's one of the fun things about the game, is you can minimize your losses to variance in many ways. So like 70% is an incredible win rate for best of 1. Congrats to Alex Quarter Calls. Pretty happy to see him doing well in this new set. But like, those numbers are very, very hard to sustain over a long period of time. Like, if you look back at these pros, I mean, they can't pass 70%, and that's even in best of 3. Now, granted, this is playing against literal other people at the Pro Tour, so like the fact that they have win rates like this against other pros, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but like, I'm just so seriously impressed by the fact that John Finkel's win rate is like 68% over such a large sample size. He's played like over 300 matches, and he's got a 60. Yeah, it's just super impressive. I mean, all these folks are very impressive for being on this list. Shout out to everyone on this list, except maybe Yuya Watanabe, because he was reportedly cheating. But I mean, still pretty good at drafting, and I don't think he was cheating at draft, to my knowledge. But yeah, still, maybe everyone except Yuya, potentially. But yeah, I'm rambling. I'm getting past my point. I hope you enjoyed watching this Draft Questions Answered episode. Remember to like the video if you do want to see more of this type of thing in the future. Comment with your questions, or questions about this question about luck. And subscribe for more content, and leave hashtag sources of luck in the comments section down below to let me know you made it all the way till the end of the video. That is going to do it for this episode of Draft Questions Answered. I know I rambled, but hopefully you enjoyed that as well. And I'll talk to you next time.